love if you would each give us some examples, share some examples of racist interactions or insults you faced throughout your life as a Black woman of faith. Again, we're jumping in to all of this because I think it's important for people to know and understand what the experience is, especially if it's not ours. And that's part of, as we have this conversation, when we're going to get to the steps that we can all take and what we can do. But I think the first thing is even beginning to understand the experience. So I'd love to start with Kelly and then Ramaz and then Khadija.
Great. Almost all of my racist experiences have occurred in Jewish spaces, synagogues, organizations, conferences. I'm privileged to operate in the world as a lighter skinned mixed race woman, but in Jewish spaces, I'm often viewed as an outsider, despite being raised in the faith and being a rabbinical student devoting my life to Jewish practice. I don't have the emotional capacity right now to go into great detail of these experiences that I faced. I don't have it in me, and I do think I need to protect myself here. But I've been the subject of many microaggressions, which are indirect slights as a result of implicit bias, which is a result of systematic and institutionalized racism. Within my Jewish practice, I'm a member of the Reform movement and am part of very progressive communities. And I look up to rabbis who are outspoken and arrested defending our social justice values. And these values are key components of our religion. We look forward to repairing the world and to speaking up to others. But in these same spaces, I'm tokenized. I'm confused for other Jews of color, even if we look nothing alike. I am confused as custodial staff, and not that that's a bad thing, but if you are the parent of a child that I teach, that's not okay. I've been told to get over cultural appropriation when I call it out or defend people, and I've been treated more harshly in my rabbinical school classes than my white classmates because of my gender and my race.
Yeah, I can echo kind of similar what Kelly said. There's, subtle forms of discrimination, and there's some that are, much more overt. There's micro and macro aggressions, and I faced them all. There were times in which, we navigate the spaces that we're in, and we know that something had just occurred that's not okay, right? But because sometimes you just want to pick your battles and you don't want to call them out. And I would also, say that, like, as someone who is, visibly Muslim and someone that also sits at the intersectionality of being a Black woman, those kind of discriminations can be a lot more charged, right? I have too many to share, but I will give some examples. When I interned on the Hill, and as an intern, I was asked to escort a congressman's cousin to the House floor because it was during a swearing-in ceremony for the 115th Congress session, and I wanted to use the restroom. And I have a badge, so that in itself should make me a legitimate, individual in that space. And the police officers would not allow me to use the bathroom. And then I, went back upstairs and I found a staffer who was African American, who, I believe is well known. And I told him my experience, and he marched down with me to communicate with the police officer that this is an intern with a valid badge, so she should be able to use the bathroom. For some people, that may seem as an overt form of discrimination, but to me, that's some of the subtle things I've experienced. I've had the cops called on me when I was in school. While I was using the bathroom, a white lady came to retrieve the coins from the pad dispensary and thought that I was homeless. So she called the cops, and the cops came into the bathroom, hands on their guns, and they saw me, and I was scared. I was startled because I was thinking, like, it was hella early because I didn't have a car, but I wanted to be, you know, the student that I was, and I wanted to work hard and and make sure that I had a good GPA and secure a bright future for myself. So I would tell my dad, look, we'll go and pray together at the mosque, the early Fajr prayer, and then you drop me off at campus, and then I will, you know, wait on campus. I got a job on campus and everything. So the cops came into the bathroom and they scared me and I scared them because I was just as scared. And they said, have you seen anybody homeless here? And I said, no, but should I be alarmed because you have your hand on your gun? And they were like, they didn't say anything. They left the bathroom, and then I packed my stuff and I went outside, and right outside the bathroom, they were waiting for me. And this is around 6:10 a.m. in the morning. And they said, can we please see some ID? And at that time, like, you know, for me, I always assume the best in people. You know, I always try to do that. And I said, sure, here's my ID. And they verified my identity. But then imagine the humiliation that occurs, or, you know, when you have to hear your name being called on a radio comm, and then for the student office to verify a residency. And even after verifying where I lived, they wouldn't leave me alone. They stayed next to me. And I told them this is where I worked. I showed them the office. I worked at the Department of Sociology and Anthropology as a work study student. And then my supervisor had come, and they waited literally an hour until my supervisor came. And when I explained to my supervisor what had happened, like I mentioned earlier, for me, like when something happens, I have all these emotions, but I'm still processing it. So I might not cry right away. So she started crying right away, and she was like, this is unacceptable. This is this is one of our best work study students we've ever had in our department. How dare you do this? So, I mean, these are the kind of the aggressions that happen. There's been so many more. I remember one time when I was fundraising for breast cancer, and I used to stay on campus for a lot longer. And again, I wasn't driving when I was a college student. So my dad would come and pick me up, and I was waiting for him on the curbside of campus. And this one car came by and tried to run me over. It was a white male in his car. And I'm not sure which one of my identities pissed him off the most in that moment, or made him feel so enraged, because as he attempted to take my life, he uttered and said, "This isn't Iraq, bitch." So this is it's just so much. It's constantly being policed in any space. When you're trying to purchase an item, it's constantly feeling like you're a thief. You're constantly made to feel like, you know, that you're invading any space. It's in our mosques. You know, we haven't gotten a chance to talk about that, but I'm definitely going to talk about it later. It's in every space we exist in, as a Muslim, as a visibly Muslim Black woman. In every single space that I exist in, I have to learn how to navigate and just have a good day, because microaggressions I can always count on them being there. And that's just kind of what my experience has been.
I could tell some stories. We'll be here all day. You know, I'm a dark-skinned woman, so even in the society, you know, that's something that's like looked down upon. So I've been experiencing this since I was a baby, since I was a kid, in Muslim and outside of Muslim spaces. And then when I wear a scarf, people think, oh, you're from a different country. Do you speak English? Yes, I speak English. I'm from America. My parents are converts. I have an Arabic name, but yes, I can speak English. And my mom, she wore niqab once when I was little, younger, and people said, to her, hi, do you need something? She was like, excuse me, I speak English. Like, so she's like really slow, like you don't understand what they're saying. And, you know, she wasn't having that. But I mean, I've been called the N-word. I've been called Saddam Hussein's cousin. I've been told to go back to Africa, or, you know, wherever that may be. But I mean, I've had some very clear, I mean, I've been followed by cops driving while Black. I've been stopped for no reason and interrogated by white cops. When I was in college, there was a drunk girl, you know, that was white, that called me the N-word. And back then I was a very fiery person. I was ready to fight her. And my friends had to hold me back and all that kind of stuff. And I was just so upset, you know, like I come from a community where it's predominantly African-American. So all people look like me. So I went to college, went to UConn first in Connecticut. So I went to UConn. And for me, it was a cultural shock. People were from all over, and I just felt like, how can I settle in? And then I had the experiences on campus. And, you know, and then people are saying, oh, you know, you're ugly, you have, you know, the wide nose and the big lips and all this stuff. And it's like, whatever. Like for me growing up, I always felt I was an ugly person because society will always tell if you have the lighter skin and like the skinnier noses and all this stuff. So I had a really low self-esteem as a child growing up. I mean, now I know I'm beautiful, so it doesn't matter. But when I was younger, I had a lot of issues, self-esteem. And even in my own African-American community, if you're lighter, you know, people are like, oh, I'm more, you know, I'm lighter. So, you know, I have more this, I can do that. And, you know, I can fit in more here or there. And they try to make themselves feel better about it. So, cause they know they're exposing themselves to discrimination, racism. No matter how much color you have in your skin, you're always going to be black. No matter how light you are, they know you're black. So they feel better to talk to someone else who's darker, make themselves feel better and raise themselves up from their issue that they're having. And then in the Muslim community, I know you're gonna talk about that more a little bit later, but I've had some, I always was taught that in Islam, there isn't any racism and we're all one. That's what we're taught. But the reality is there are people that are racist within every faith. And I've had really interesting experiences about that. You know, I've been called words like abid, which means slave. I've been called words in different languages that means like dark skin or black person, like in a derogatory way. You know, so it's just, it's a lot. I think we have a lot to dismantle in our communities, but it's not my job to do it. You guys need to have your own conversations about it. You need to address your own insecurities, your own racism, and your own privilege, and let people feel accepted in the community, because no Muslim is better than any other Muslim. No person is better than any other person. It's because you're fair and I'm not, as make you better than me. We all still bleed red. We're all still human. And, you know, but society sounds different. That's why we're being killed in the streets because of our skin color. I was told I'm a fake Muslim because I'm African-American and a convert. My family's converts, and they start off with Nation of Islam. So we're fake Muslims. They don't know anything about Islam. You know, I'm more Muslim than you. I mean, at least I'm not, you know, saying these negative things. I'm not, you know, being disrespectful like you're being. Like, I'm trying to be a good person. You tell me I'm not Muslim? Like, how are you going to tell somebody you're not Muslim? Only Allah can judge me, pretty much. So it's just all these different experiences I've experienced in my life. I'll go into more detail later on when we talk about, you know, within the faith. I worked in the Hill too, Rimaz. I was intern there as well. And I, you know, had some experiences. Aren't you hot and all that? Aren't you hot too? We're all hot. It doesn't matter what we're wearing, we're all hot. So it's like, do you have an AC under your scarf? Seriously. You know, it's just all types of different things that people say to you and ask you, are you bald-headed? Because I respect if I'm bald-headed. You took a shower with that on? It's just all types of people ask you and say to you when you are visibly Muslim. And I wasn't wear a scarf. So when I went and wear a scarf, oh, just a regular black girl. Or wear a scarf, oh, where you from? You born here? You know, so it's just like, it kind of changes how people perceive you by what you wear. So to say about that right now.
Thank you, ladies, for being vulnerable with us and really getting deep down in actually what has happened to you throughout your life, because unless people hear it and unless people actually can imagine that happening, they don't know, right? And that's why we're here. We're here to let people know that these are the types of incidents that have happened in your life, and it doesn't matter what faith you're from or where you're from. If you're Black, you're going to, you know, have people who are racist in your face throughout your life. And how Ramaz says, like, I have to like figure out how I'm going to work throughout that space. And that's a lot of work. That's a lot of emotional work, and a human being should not have to go through that. And that's one of the other systemic problems we have in this country, is just the foundation of racism and how it's embedded into our everyday life, where it's made to keep the Black community grounded, where growth and movement is not, you know, something that is promoted for that community.